Hi Tanya, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine in some cafe somewhere in
Fantastic.
Lisbon. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. It's I'm very excited about this conversation. We've been trying to do this for a while now, a couple of years now. So I'm really excited that we get the opportunity to do it now.
Yeah, me too, actually. I'm a bit nervous, so just saying sorry at the beginning if I say some weird stuff, okay?
Don't worry, it's absolutely fine. Relax. So if you just introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background, that would be wonderful to start with.
Of course. So I'm Tania Rivilis. I'm a self-taught artist. I studied painting around like 11 years ago when I moved to Germany, actually. And with the small steps, with copying old masters, then I started finding my own signature style or like some voice that I wanted to express. And yeah, and then somehow galleries started kind of contacting me and inviting me to the shows. And somehow I finished at the Royal Portrait Society with some awards. I still can't believe, like, when I'm telling it to someone, I really cannot believe that this is happening to me. But yeah, was it a good introduction? I'm sorry if it was too.
That was fantastic. No, that was
Okay.
fantastic. So you say you're self-taught.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
So you've never studied painting at any school or anything like that?
No, unfortunately. And I think, like if I could go to any art school, I think I could reach more and be like, I don't know, on a better level, technically at least. So I feel like it's a really sad detail in my, like bio.
Well, don't be sad by it because your paintings are absolutely incredible, and you've got the most amazing,
Thank you.
you've got your own vision and your own style that you represent in your art so wonderfully. So
Thank you so
I
much.
wouldn't be worried at all.
But can
So,
you imagine what I would reach if I would have an art school?
well, exactly, yeah. So where were you born, and where are you from originally?
So I'm originally from Ukraine, but it's kind of strange thing because it was the Soviet Union that time when I was born, and it was a territory of Ukraine. And then when I was around 8 years old, my mom moved to Moscow, so I lived the rest of my life in Moscow until I moved to Germany, around like 12 years ago, something like that. So yeah, that's my journey.
And when you were growing up, were you influenced by art? Did you look at much art? When did your passion for art start? I mean, were you looking at art in Moscow, in Ukraine, or in Germany?
I think there is like a sensitive age of a child when you kind of like absorbing stuff around you and you are affected by this. But somehow in my childhood, the only art I saw actually was my grandma painting some swans in her kind of dacha, like this countryside house, something like that. That's the only art I actually saw. And I wouldn't say that I was super interested in art. I really like, like any child, just to draw some doodles on the back of the notebook or something like that. I guess the most interest for art was actually when I was in the university and we had. Like my university was in media design, so I was mostly working with computers and 3Ds and everything. But we had this extra subject of art history, and I fell in love. Like, but it was, like not like I wanted to paint or something. It was just I was in love with all this story of artists, of all these genres. So that was my probably a peak of my interest in art, actually.
So what kind of things were you studying in the history of art? I mean, was it just general history of art, or were there specific artists that really piqued your interest?
Well, Impressionists were my favorite, probably. And of course, old masters. And all artists are going through this Dutch painters kind of stage, like when you start copying Rembrandt or like Vermeer or something like that. And they are like a gods for you. But then you just move slowly to something more modern, to like a expressionist or like to modern art. But probably, yeah, expressionists were my favorite guys.
That's incredible because I can see both influences in your work. I can see the colors of the Impressionists and also the kind of brushwork of the old masters in your paintings. So it's amazing that kind of grabbed your interest very early on, and that still sort of propels, through you can still see it and propels through your life and through your career, your artistic life.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you see it actually. I mean, like I try to express something with my works, and as you know, I work with portraits mostly, so it's not the most, like, not the richest thing to kind of tell the story, because portrait is a portrait, right? But the funny thing is, the portrait is not what we see, but what we are. In our, like, through our cultural backgrounds, our fears, traumas, we see the portrait through our own filter somehow. I
Yeah,
don't know why I sound so smart. I'm sorry, I'm usually not like that.
no, absolutely. It's funny how those things happen unconsciously as well. They just come out of you sort of naturally. The things that you pay your attention to, you kind of become. And it's just this unnatural. It's just this very natural, organic process.
Thank you.
But a lot of the people listening and watching, they'll be thinking, "Wow, Tania's a self-taught artist. How on earth do I begin to learn how to paint?" So what advice would you give someone that's just starting their journey?
I don't know, like, probably be true to yourself. This is the main thing, because usually we try, especially like affected by all the social media and stuff, we try kind of be kind of fake and not true to ourselves, try to pretend that we are something different. I decided that I won't do this after I tried, and then I realized that it's so hard actually to pretend to be someone else and play a role. And I think being true to yourself is the best thing to start with. Not try to copy someone else. It's nice to copy, at the beginning, but as a base for something like true and something individual, probably. And also experiment. Like, what helped to me, what helped for me is the experiments. I did a lot of, I changed surfaces. I found something on the garbage in warehouses. I picked up this piece of wood. I want to say something different, but and painted on it. And when you change surface and medium, it kind of pushes you to go out of your comfort zone. It kind of pushes you to go above your limits, and like your creativity start like involving, and I don't know what, it's too complicated sentence for me. But like I mean that experimenting is the best thing you can do. Like, change medium, change surface, change subject. Always constantly do something new, and then you will start finding and feeling that it goes to the right way. Like, you will feel it. I guess it's like with a love. You know what I mean? Like, you will feel it.
Yeah. And so you say that you experimented by painting on wood. How quickly did that happen? Did that happen quite quickly, quite early on, or?
Mm-hmm. So I painted, like, I tried, as I said, a copies of old masters with a small, tiny brush. And I was so afraid to do extra brush stroke, more expressive one, because I was so limited by the fear. And then I found these plywood panels, which is like OSB. I'm not sure how you call it in your country, but it's like pressed wood panels, like it's a particles of wood. And I found it actually on the, like, garbage area. And I thought, like, it's a nice surface to paint on. And it was for free, so materials are already expensive. And then when I tried to paint on it, all this texture, all this raw material pushed me to be more expressive, add more emotions, and brush strokes started being more like loose and expressive. So it just pushed me to go like in different directions, actually. So it's still one of my favorite material, but now I know how to prepare it, because before I didn't know. So yeah.
Oh, so do you have to prepare the wood? How do you prepare the wood?
Yeah, so I sand it, with a sandpaper. You have to delete this resin cover because it's sprayed with some specific resin, something chemical stuff. And then I cover all these holes to make the wood panel slightly smoother, because when the holes are too big, then, you know, like if it's on the eye area, then all your like brush stroke goes deep and it looks kind of like weird. So I try to sand it, then smooth it, then keep the holes filled with some kind of like, it's specific thing for the wood. You can buy it in warehouse. And then I cover it with gesso, or like, you know, then you prepare it like
Gesso,
normal.
yeah.
Exactly. And then you prepare it like a canvas or any plywood or any wood panel. And then you're ready to paint on it.
Wow. And so this basically just from experimenting and having to apply more paint, it kind of developed your style, because
Absolutely.
you use a lot of paint, which I love, like Rembrandt.
Yeah.
And I love the material, you know, the material of the paint you use, you know, the materiality of the paint you use. It's got so much body, and within that body you see the brush strokes, and you see your handwriting within the, you know, handwriting, your signature sort of hand style, brush style within the paint. And I just, that's what I look for in art, and I love that about your work.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, in my workshops, I just had 3 and a few coming soon in New York, in Portugal. But I always try to push people to use more oils, because I see how people, and I know oil materials are super expensive, and I feel your pain, guys. But, you know, if you want scoop it like an ice cream, you know, it's not going to be yummy. You know what I mean? Like, you better take it as much as you would eat. Just yeah, so I try to push people to take more. That's why when I mix colors, I show students that, okay, I mix color, now I take the brush and I scoop it, like I take it as an ice cream, and with a lot of loaded brush, with a lot of oil, I do the brush stroke, but then it's so yummy.
Yeah, amazing. Well, that is a very good way of describing your paintings. They're very, very yummy. They're
Don't
full of
eat it.
color. They're full of color, and they're full of paint, and they've got an amazing brushwork. You know, it's like
Thank
all
you
of the
so
things
much.
that I look for in a work of art. So I'm
Oh
a
my
huge
God, I
admirer.
can't take compliments. Thank
I'm
you
a,
so much, but my cheeks are like in pain.
I'm a huge admirer of
Thank
your
you.
work. And you're based in Lisbon, is that right?
Actually, it's like 30 minutes from Lisbon. It's a small fisherman town called Setúbal, or as Portuguese people would say, it's Setúbal, something like that. And it's a quiet little area, like next to the ocean. It's a beautiful place. That's where I will have my next workshop, actually. So it's an amazing place. I hope you will visit me one day here in Portugal.
I would love to. I went a few years ago on a trip to Porto. Then
Porto,
I went to
yeah.
Lisbon, and then I got the train across to Madrid to the Prado, and it was an amazing trip.
I love it.
Have
Sounds
you
really great.
have you been to the Prado?
Yeah, I just had my solo exhibition in Madrid. I just
Okay.
ended like a week ago. And of course, I was twice in Prado. And the last time I actually even met Jerry Zoltz, the art critic.
I
I met him
saw.
there. It
I
was like
saw.
mind blowing, you know,
How
like,
was he?
oh, he's adorable. I mean, like, I'm his big fan. I have his books and everything. And I once almost sketched him in LA, but he was one day early in that museum where I've been. And this time I just saw that where I had my exhibition opening. And he was at the same time in Prado Museum, and it was such a funny, it was like surreal story, because I was taking a tickets to his lecture, and then my husband, my sister pointed to some guy, and he said, "It looks like Jerry Zaltz is walking there." And I was like, "Where?" I even forgot to take my tickets. I was running after him, screaming, "Jerry!" And then it was so funny. He was like so scared, but he's adorable. And he even asked me to show my art, and he gave me some critiques, and he gave me some advices and talked with me for 10 minutes. So I mean, like, I've heard stories that he was kind of like a little bit arrogant, but I mean, like, he was so adorable and so friendly to me.
Oh, that's so good to hear. No, I mean, he's so well known within the art world, and his writing is genuinely, genuinely good. And you can see that there's a real love for art. There's not this cynicism that he has for art. You know,
Absolutely.
he really appreciates people that try and try to be artists. And you know, it's a difficult enough life, as you know, being an artist. And
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
has respect for that. You know, and I think he's he's a great writer.
Yeah, and I love that he writes not only for native English speakers, because sometimes I try to read some specific literature about art or philosophy, and I'm like reading one sentence and like, what the hell I was reading right now? Like I don't get it. Although my English is probably on a medium level, but still it's so difficult to read some books about art. But the way he writes, it's kind of like easy. It's a, normal language that we use. So it was really, really nice. And, he wrote on the book, because I brought him a book to sign, and he wrote art first, all else goes after. And then he wrote, I'm watching you. And it sounds creepy a little bit, but like, I'm watching you. And I'm afraid to post anything on Instagram, because like he followed me on Instagram as well. And I'm like, what if he will see and he won't like it?
Oh, amazing! What an amazing guy. So
He is, yeah.
so you're not based in Lisbon, but what's the art scene like in Lisbon itself? Is there a lot going on in the arts?
We have nice galleries here. That's true. I would say that I'm unfortunately not a super social person. I'm hiding in my studio all the time, like in my cave. And I'm going sometimes to some kind of like a parties or gallery openings. So we have here big digital events like NFT Summit or something like that. So I try to be like, into this scene, but not so deep as I would want it.
So there is a bit of an art scene in Lisbon, because I heard that a couple
Mm-hmm.
of years ago artists just started to flock to Lisbon because it was cheaper than other areas. People in Berlin,
Absolutely.
people were going to Berlin a few years ago, but then Berlin became too expensive. London's become too expensive. So the artists,
London is so
I know
expensive.
it's
God.
crazy, but the artists always look for the new cool place. They always have a
Mm.
way of finding that place, and Lisbon seemed to be that place. So it's interesting to hear what's going on there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not the best person to ask this question. As I said, like I'm hiding in my studio. I'm trying to be focused, and at the same time, it's so funny. I'm saying that like I'm, all day long in my studio painting. No, I'm just sitting in my studio procrastinating, or I don't know, like drinking coffee all day. I would say something more professional, but unfortunately, that's how I am. So.
So what's a typical day in your studio like? Do you like to work early in the morning? Do you like what time do you
Uh,
get to your studio, and what happens in a typical day?
It's a good question. And, like before I was replying a bit differently, but now I will be very honest. And I decided I will be just honest and say as it is, because, like, first of all, who cares? And second, it will be an honest reply. So I wake up like pretty early, around 8. I have my breakfast, then I go to my studio. But the funniest thing is that when I come to the studio, I have a beautiful like sofa, very comfortable, very cozy. And I sit on the sofa and start looking at my painting for around like 1 hour or so. And then I just, like I feel like I want coffee. And then I go out, grab a coffee. And it's a small town. So whenever I go out, I meet people. So I have these small talks, like that. It takes me sometimes an hour. And then I'm coming back to the studio and it's already almost 12, and at 12 I have lunch. So I'm like calling my husband like, this lunchtime, let's go to have lunch. Then it's around 1 after lunch, and then I have to drink coffee again. So to make the story short, I come back to the studio around 2 probably, and then I start painting. Although I go to the studio early, I start painting probably at 2. Is it weird? Is it like, it
No,
sounds
well,
probably horrible?
it's no, it's funny how long you can look at paintings. Like a lot of looking has to happen when you're an artist. Sometimes I
Mm.
sit in my studio and I just stare at paintings for hours as well, because
Right?
I don't know. It's funny because it's amazing how the your eye and your mind can play tricks on you. You might be painting all day, and then you'll come in the next morning and you'll look at what you've done, and it's completely different to what you
Oh
thought you'd
God,
done.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I heard someone was saying, oh, it's probably Jerry Zaltz. You remember in his interview, he was saying like, you're painting in the evening, you think you're like a genius or something. Then you're going back home, you return to studio in the morning, and like, what the fuck is that? You know, like, who made that? Yeah, I totally understand. It happens. Our minds are
And
weird thing.
it's the funniest thing because like when you're in the middle of a painting, that happens on a daily basis. You come in and you're trying to work your way through the painting, and then it's
Right.
done. Eventually, you decide it's done at some point, and then it goes off to whoever's bought it, or it might just go in your studio, or it might,
Right.
it's sort of your energy stops. Like you stop focusing on it, and then 10 years later or 5 years later, you'll look back at it and you'll think that was actually a great painting. It's really weird. Well, in my case, that's what happens to me. I look back at work that I've done years ago and I actually appreciate it. And at the time, I probably struggled with it. I hated it. I spent days looking at it exactly as we're talking about.
Absolutely. You know, it's like the work that Kupka's dog, one of the work that I sent to Royal Portrait Society, and it was my first work that I sent, and it won William Locke Prize, like the biggest prize they had. And it's funny thing because I actually almost destroyed this work. I didn't like it at all. And actually my husband who said it, like, please don't touch it, it's beautiful. And I was like almost covering with another paint because I didn't like it. Can you imagine like how subjective art is, like even for creator?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm sure people say to you that, I like that painting and you might hate it, but they like it the
What?
best, and it's like,
I know.
it's people come into my studio and they look at some works that they're not even paintings, and they'll say, I love that one. And it's like, what? I didn't even think it was so. It's so, yeah, it's so, everyone has a different opinion, and it's so, it's so down to the
How
individual.
interesting it is, right? Like it fascinates me so much that every human has different tastes. Even like the way we see art, the way we see colors is so different. It's so individual. It's like a miracle. It's a magic.
Yeah, it's almost, I mean, you can get even deeper than that and think, like, is my interpretation of the world like other people see it? Does they
Yeah,
see it the same way as I'm seeing it? Or am I
yeah.
seeing it uniquely in my own way? Like, is that green a green like Tanya sees that green, or am I seeing it
Absolutely
completely
not.
differently?
Yeah, and it's like a lot of books about the colors that explains that we actually see the colors differently. Even like if someone will ask me to paint red, like my red will be like different from your red. Like maybe, your red based on Coca-Cola red, my red is based on Soviet Union flag red. I like just example, but you know what I mean. So yeah, it's
Yeah, no,
interesting.
100%. So one thing that
Mm-hmm.
because I studied painting in Florence. I was very lucky. I had the opportunity to study painting in Florence, and
Ooh la la.
yeah, it's sort of the center of portrait, classical training for
Mm,
portraiture in Europe. So I was taught Titian, and I was taught about
ooh,
Rembrandt and Caravaggio, all of that stuff. But then when I
lucky.
left, I started looking at Russian painters, and they influenced me more than anyone else. Like
Wow. Who's your
it,
favorite?
in my style. Well, I mean, of course, Repin, but I love all of them.
He's
But
OG.
Ilya Repin is just incredible. And in the way I paint, I think that after my training, the Russian painters have influenced me more than anyone else. Although Repin is
Wow.
considered Ukrainian.
Yeah, nowadays, yeah. Before we didn't have absurd subject to discuss, but unfortunately nowadays is, yeah, he was born in Ukrainian part that time. So, but
Yeah, I mean, have they?
let's not divide art, please.
No,
Like let's
exactly.
keep it like art. That's it. One nationality.
I agree. But have they influenced you? Do you look at those amazing Russian painters and
Absolutely,
mm,
absolutely. I mean, like, I love in St. Petersburg, there is like a Russian museum with a lot of works. And one of my favorite is Philippe Malyavin. I don't know if you heard about him. Philippe Malyavin. I will send you his
mm,
works. You will love it. The way, the bold brushstrokes, the expressions is the word, right?
mm.
Like all these emotions, all this vibrant, like a chaos, but it all made a coherent image at the same time. And he paints a lot of like a peasant women and all that peasant life and everything. I will send you for sure. And another guy that I like is Konstantin Korovin.
Yeah,
I
I know
don't.
him.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Cool. And also the student of Ilya Repin, Serov, Valentin Serov, is also amazing. And also
Yeah.
Vrubel. I mean, like there are so many
There are so many. There
awesome
are so many,
guys.
and it's kind of unknown as well. Like within the European context of the history of art, it's kind of a separate thing. But I think the work that they did for a certain period of time, the Russian artists, just pre-Soviet Union, was so powerful, and the style was so good.
Yeah.
It was just incredible. Where do you think that style came from?
I don't know. It was like a realism school, and probably after all this royal portraits and the portraits of Tsar and everything, people just wanted to paint something real, like what they see. And probably it's just like a time when people realize that you don't want to make a life, more beautiful, because it is as it is. It's already like a subject to paint. And it's really cool that I still find paintings of Russian Ukrainian artists that I didn't see. Like it's amazing. It's like for me like hunting the treasures. I recently just found a portrait of Ilya Repin with. I will send it to you as well. Probably we can add it somewhere on the screen,
Sure.
but it's just amazing the way he painted all the stripes on background. I never saw it before, and was just like a finding a treasure, again. So I forgot what the
I
question
know the
was.
painting. I know the exact painting you're talking about, and
Really?
it with the stripes, yeah, and it does look. It reminds me of your work, firstly,
Yeah.
but also it looks so contemporary. Like it looks like it was painted yesterday.
Absolutely. Exactly. When I saw it, like first I didn't. I mean, like you can see by the technique and the style that it's still Ilya Repin, but the background and all this, bold brush strokes and all the contemporary colors, he was not afraid to, combine this kind of colors. It was like yellow and something like purplish, but I'm not sure if this reproduction is like a true colors. But anyway, it was really modern.
He looked like he had so much fun when he was painting. Like his paintings looked like they just look like so much fun to paint. The brushworks, it's just
Yeah.
exploding out of the canvas, and it just whenever I look at his work, and there's not enough. If you want to go and see Repin paintings, you have to go to Russia, and I can't wait to go personally. It's such
Me
a shame,
too.
that the political situation is such a shame because there's
I
just
know,
a
yeah.
whole world of art that I want to see, in Ukraine and in Russia,
Yeah,
that's really unknown in the rest of Europe and the rest of the world.
absolutely. And yeah, just before the war, like I visited Moscow and St. Petersburg, and it was like amazing. It just started, blooming, and then this shit happened. So can we say shit during the
Yeah,
live?
yeah, it's fine.
Okay, cool,
It's
cool.
fine. It's fine.
Sorry, guys.
So Repin paintings have influenced your style when you were looking at how to paint and things.
Uh, Definitely. And Valentin Serov, his student, I did several copies of his paintings and portraits, and the way he combines a lot of colors in the portrait. And I, thanks God, we have internet and iPad where I can zoom in, like as much as I can to see all the brush strokes. And if you will zoom in, you will see how he applied the like thousand of brush strokes of tones and colors next to each other to make this image of shimmering, kind of vivid and shining through skin. So yeah, it's amazing to zoom in sometimes.
And do you think that Repin was painting those portraits in many sessions, or do you think he was doing them in just a few, like one or two sessions? Because they look so fresh.
Yeah, I guess it's their secret. Like it's actually like a St. Petersburg school. It feels like that. So you feel this kind of alla prima feeling, right? Like it was painted wet on wet, like in one session. But there are several historical photos, like from his studio where he painted Shalyapin, for example, and like. looking at the size of the portrait, it looks so big that he was definitely not able to paint it in one session. And you can see that Shaliapin was coming to him to pose, and then you see that he's like did some parts, and probably he did it in many sessions. And I don't know how long it took. He actually has a beautiful kind of diary book, but it's unfortunately only in Russian. And
That's the
I
that's the
hope
problem that I find so sad. It's
it's.
all in Russian, all of the art in Russia, in these museums in Moscow and St. Petersburg, and all of the literature's in Russia. Like if I want to get a good repping book, I have to buy it in Russian. And
I know,
it's
yeah,
just amazing that he's not better known in the West, because I think he's one of the greatest painters that's ever lived. He's one of the greatest
absolutely.
artists that's ever lived.
Yeah, I think the only Russian artist that is well known international is Nikolai Feshin.
Mm.
But just because he migrated to US at
Mm.
some point, so probably that's why he's kind of like very known among the international artists. But yeah, Repin and all his company, like all the Sirov and Philip Malyavin, as I said, or Korovin. And it's such a pity that they have only books in Russian, because Repin's book is one of my favorite. Konstantin Korovin book is one of my favorite. They describe all this life, like all this time that they lived in, their own struggles and suffers as an artist at that time, as in Russian Empire time, so it's fascinating.
And they had this amazing philosophy on life, that they believed that their art was not meant for the elite only. They didn't believe in painting portraits for the elite. They wanted to paint portraits of the common person on the street and show the common person on the street art. They were called, the group of painters in English is called the Wanderers or the Itinerants.
Передвижники, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they're just such an impressive group of artists, that,
absolutely.
yeah, I really think there needs to be more of that in the world today. Art is so dominated by the elites, and
Yeah,
dominated by the galleries that kind of, they're the gatekeepers to what people think is taste. And it's like this very gross kind
right.
of system that's been put in place, where people feel like they're locked outside of the garden, that they can't come in and enjoy the fruits, because these
Absolutely.
galleries keep them out. And I just think that art should be for everyone, like it's we are the species, we're the species of animal. Humans are the species of animal that create, and when people say to me, oh, I'm not creative at all, I look at them and just think, but maybe you don't paint, but like everyone's creative from when they're little children. You're just creating and making things the whole time. You choose what you want to wear, you choose where you're going to eat, you choose what you're going to eat, like there are choices and creative choices in everyday life. And you can obviously be obsessed with creating, so you'd be an artist, or you might have it in another way, but like art should be for everyone, is my point.
Absolutely, I totally agree. But it's really nice that nowadays the institutions are allowing, minor artists, like I know artists in older age, self-taught artists of color. Like it's great that we now open these doors. At least like institutions open these doors, and there are more women artists in museums and the galleries. It's still not balanced, right? Like it's still somewhere here, but at least the door opened, and we have this like more possibilities than before, of course. So this is like it's positive news, right? So but still
Absolutely,
not
yeah.
good enough. Yeah, yeah.
Things are getting better slowly. And well, how do you think that Instagram has changed the way people perceive art? Because it's clearly had a huge influence on the art world.
Yeah.
How do you think it's changed people's perception of art?
Yeah, so I think it's like how you call it, mercy and the course, or like what's the I forgot like how you say it in English, but I mean like it has advantage and disadvantage. So the one is that we can share our art, like all the artists can share their works, and I'm also not exception. I start posting my works when I just start painting, and thanks to Instagram, like one gallery noticed me, another gallery invited to the group show, and then so on and so forth. But at the same time, uh, we're so pushed to compare yourself with other people. Like we are so into this toxic positivity. We see all this good news, we see all the successful success, as we say. And of course, it's a pressure. It's a mental pressure on us, not just artists, but just like younger generation or any other people, just to compare yourself with other people, and it's mentally very difficult. And like even when I talk with someone and someone tells me like, "Oh, you're so like you're talented, blah blah blah, your art is amazing," and then the first thing that comes to my mind is that I start remembering artists that I saw on Instagram with better, I don't know, like art career, or I feel like they're better, they're more talented, whatever. So there's always this comparison in my head, like, and it's just because of social media. It's not like I'm going to a gallery and comparing myself. No, I'm enjoying art, and I'm glad that there is like a good art, a mediocre art, a bad art, but it's, it's a full range of art tones. But with social media, it's difficult because, as I said, like we see only positive picture. That's why I'm trying to post more, like, I don't know, sad news. I was not selected for the open call, and I love to share it because this is what happens. This is life. And sometimes life goes up, sometimes life go down. It's like surfing. I don't like, you catch your wave, you lose another wave. But yeah, but social media is, I don't know how you say it in English. It's like a curse and a blessing.
Pros and cons. A blessing and a curse.
Yes,
a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's funny because like when I'm looking at my Instagram feed, I just want to see art. Like I don't want to see anything else. But other things do just get in there somehow, and then I end up looking at whatever, this and that nonsense. And
yeah.
I think it is a wonderful place to look at art. I'm definitely a big fan, but it's not the same as going to a museum. There's something
absolutely.
There's something so there's something so incredible about. Well, I say that the other day I was in the National Gallery and I was a bit annoyed because I was in the Rembrandt room and it was packed full of people, and I'm like, oh my God, I just want to have a look at this Rembrandt with no one around. But yeah, it's the sense of being in front of a painting is a very, very special sense that you just don't get from Instagram. But what also the thing that I think about Instagram is it kind of gives this throwaway culture. So if you think about like when people first started looking at photographs or the very early photographs, they were sort of only a few images to look at. Now we're just bombarded with thousands and thousands of images, and that could be paintings if that's what your algorithm is tuned to, like mine is. But what paintings stand out? Which paintings take you grab your attention, and do you want to look at? It's just this amazing new world really that we're part of, and there's no escaping it.
Yeah, it's probably another parallel, but I read somewhere an article that human is like a social animal, right? But we were supposed to meet probably 150 people or something like that during the life or something, or seeing much less information during our life. Now this window is opened and we see so much that our brain is not capable to proceed, and of course,
I think the theory, it's like an idea that we've evolved to know about 150 people, and that's as much as we can, and that's as much as we can sort of deal with. But nowadays, obviously, especially if you live in a city, you're seeing thousands of people and having to interact with thousands of people, and it's very unnatural. I think there's a lot of truth to that for sure, because we've grown up. We've evolved for hundreds of thousands of years in a certain way, and then suddenly in the last 100 years, modern life. So it's maybe we haven't adapted as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
But within all of that has always been art. We had art in early man had art, early humans had art. And we still have art today, and it plays a very important role in well, certainly in my life, your life, but I think it plays an important role in everyone's lives.
Yeah, totally agree. Absolutely. Yeah.
You've just recently had your one of your works of art on the cover of a book. How did that come about?
Oh my God, yes. I mean, like, this is, I didn't expect that I will feel so many emotions when I will receive the book and I will hold the book with the cover, with my painting as a cover. I thought it will be like something like, the cover, okay, like in a magazine, something like that. But it's so different. And like the story behind this is that one published house contact me through Instagram, but as a suspicious person, I thought it was a scam. So I didn't reply for some time. Then they started contacting me through my emails, and I thought again, like, very pushy scammers, so like that. Until they contacted the gallery, and gallery contacted me, and they said like like this book published house wanted to take a painting for their cover. And then I contacted them and we talked, and they wanted to take a painting for their book. And it was like a writer, Nobel Prize winner, Mario Vargas Llosa. Probably I pronounced it wrong. But anyway, and of course I said like, wow, yeah, for sure. It's a privilege, like to have your painting as a cover, and it's going to be in Poland. It's in Polish language. So I have the book. They send me the copy, but I don't get it, so I don't understand what is written. But it's amazing. I mean, like, people will see my painting as a book cover. It's mind blowing.
And so, how did what's the? So do you think the author was interested in your work? Did he decide, or how did they, become so interested in your work? Was it the publishing house?
Yeah, I think it's a publishing house. I'm not sure if Mario Vargas knows about me because he's so, like famous, and it's Peru is so far away. So I don't think he chose my painting. But I think it's a publishing house. So
Right.
thanks to them.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's an amazing opportunity to be part of that. Will you be invited to the book launch?
I don't know. I think it's launched already, and
Okay.
it's in their bookstores around Poland. And one of my students from the previous workshop from Poland already bought the books and like showed me the photos. It's
So
really cool.
is your painting only on the Polish edition?
Yeah, unfortunately, can you imagine? It's so sad. I wish I would
Okay.
have it in English or I don't know, Russian, whatever, Ukrainian. That would be
But
great.
but you're saying the writer's from Peru.
Yeah, the writer is from Peru. I think they just publish it in Poland.
Okay, that's
Mm,
interesting. All
yeah.
right. And so tell me about your workshops. So when do your workshops run?
Say again. I
You
didn't
you
hear it.
you you have workshops where you teach
Right.
people how to paint. And so when do they
Yeah.
run? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. I can hear you. I just didn't understand the question. Sorry, it's my
Yeah,
English level.
no no problem. Yeah, just so when do your workshops run and how long do they go for? And yeah, what's involved in joining those and being part of those?
Yeah, I actually started with workshops just last year, and Art Escape Italy. I think it's like a well-known retreat in Florence. Tana and Dorian, the organizer, are amazing people, and they invited me to the workshop where actually one of my favorite artists go there to teach, and I was like really speechless when I had the message from them. And I went there, and the funny thing is that when I saw people, it was like 17 people standing behind me, and I had to do the demo. I don't know about you if you feel comfortable with the demos, but I never painted around like, for people in front of people. And I had to finish an eye area, and I couldn't do that because my hand was so shaking that I couldn't actually get this pupil, like the eye area, because my hand was kind of abstract painting style. So I was so nervous, and I felt them all, watching me and waiting from me something, like beautiful. It was a lot of pressure. But then second workshop was in Portugal. I organized it myself with my team. My husband helped me, my sister. She's in art marketing, so we could, work together on this. And she helps me a lot with all this marketing scene, social media. It's a blessing to have someone in your family who does marketing. So
Oh wow, yeah, 100%. Because
yeah,
as an artist, you just want to do the work and you want that kind of everything else dealt with.
yeah. Yeah, and they took all the pressure from me, from all this organization questions. So I just had to come to the workshop, paint, and do, talks and shares and all the stuff. And we also included art marketing and the coach session, and also the session with art galleries and art supplies the guy who owns this art supplies, and he does oil paints and everything. So we had like a very intense workshop for 5 days with all this knowledge that I thought like artists needs for their, like future paths when they return to their studios. Because I've been to the several workshops, and I remember like when I learned how to paint the forehead, when you're coming back to your studio, you probably remember how to mix color. But what if your model is a dark skin person, something like that? Then all your knowledge is like so. And I thought like it would be nice to push, not to push them to repeat my style, like and copy my artistic style, but to push their creativity and to force them to try something new, like to be more. And also in my workshop there was like all materials were included, so people didn't need to be nervous about how much they scoop, how much paint they take, so they could create freely, just get crazy with all the colors and texture. It was so much fun. And like people did 3 portraits at the end. All 3 was so different, and we had really fun. And now next one I'm going to New York, so it will be in the May. My first time in New York. You've been to New York, right? You probably.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
it amazing? I never been there. I think it's gonna be like in a movie.
Yeah, they have the Metropolitan Museum there that it would just blow your mind. It's one of the greatest
Oh
museums in
my
the world.
God.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah,
wait.
it's got such great paintings in there, and it's a beautiful museum. They've also got the Frick, which has very famous Rembrandts and Titians. So
Okay.
you're gonna enjoy New York for sure.
Oh my God. What about MoMA? Is it like worth visiting? I'm sure everything is worth visiting.
MoMA, I have
Oh,
been there
really?
when I was younger. I just went to the Met and the Frick because I'm obsessed with old master paintings. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think I have been to MoMA when I was like 18.
Okay. Oh my God,
Yeah.
you've been there several times. You
I've been there
lucky.
twice. I've been there
Oh,
twice. I've been to New York twice.
uh,
When you're painting in your studio, do you paint from life? Do you have models that come in and sit for you?
mhm.
How does the process work?
If I'm lucky enough and I have someone who has time to sit for me, that would be wonderful. But unfortunately, nowadays it's a bit difficult. Also, like models, if it's a professional models, you have to pay, so it's kind of like always expensive for you. I try to work from the references, but the reference that I do, so I invite my friends or some strangers from the cafes or something like that to my studio, and then I organize some kind of like photo shooting. I will have one today actually in a couple of hours. I just need to go from Lisbon somehow and not stuck in traffic. Yeah, so I just meet people if I find their face kind of interesting for me, or I see some like idea that I can involve this kind of personality into that. So I just ask them to come to my studio, and sometimes people kind of find it creepy, probably because with my Russian accent, I'm just like, "Hey, you want to come to my studio? I will paint you." And they're like usually like, um, yeah, but usually people are nice, and I show my Instagram, and like with 100,000 like followers, people kind of, oh, she's not a freak or something like that. She's
Right.
okay.
Oh, so you literally find people in cafes that you like the look of. You think they'll make an interesting painting, and you just say, "Can I take some photos of you in my studio for a pose or something like that?"
Kind of, yeah. And my husband, like you know that I paint mostly men, right?
Right.
So when we go to some bar, some cafe, and my husband sometimes is involved in this game, so he's like sitting there like, "Oh, look, there is a character that you might like," and then he point me to like some guy, and then he's like, "Go, ask him to pose for you." So it's funny. It's like we're hunting together. Something like
Amazing.
that.
And it's amazing to think that, and if those people could be in 100 years from now, could be in some museum somewhere and they wouldn't even like maybe even know. Well,
Yeah.
maybe they will know, but it's just an incredible thought.
Maybe they are granddaughters or sons. I've heard it like a words that says something like, "You will never die if artist is in love with you." So it's such a romantic, beautiful words. I find it really beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of Picasso. He used to go up to people in cafes and things like that, men and women, to, to invite them back to his studio. It's sort of a modern version of that. And then, all of these characters in his life you can see in all his paintings, and it's just, it's almost like a visual diary in a way of the people you've met in your life.
Lucian Freud also, like he like painted only people he wanted to paint, right? He didn't do much commissions. So I remember in his book he was describing something like he painted a guy who tried to get to his apartment to steal something, and he actually invited him to like pose. I don't remember exactly, but
I think that was Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon that happened with. Yeah, he broke into his. He broke into his apartment in London, and then he asked him to basically he asked him to pose, but then he became his boyfriend as well. So,
God.
A legendary story. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
And how do you come up with your poses and ideas? I mean, are you influenced from art that you see, or is it just, I don't know, how does that work?
So I mean, like of course, I look a lot of at a lot of art, and I find some poses. For example, like sometimes I take the poses from Velázquez. I really like the way his characters are sitting and slightly melancholic way. Sometimes just some photos that, like Pinterest. So everyone is watching Pinterest, let's be honest. And sometimes you just find someone's photo that inspires you and you think, wow, this pose would be nice, but I would, change the background or change the colors. So I would add, I don't like something like flowing fabrics, whatever. So it's sometimes it's just a movie, sometimes just a person. Today we were at the cafe and I was staring at the one woman who was sitting right in front of me, and she was kind of sleepy, dreamy mood, and she was enjoying the sun. And the way she put her hands, something like, like it was so beautiful. And I made like secretly a photo to use it like in the future poses. So it's a lot of like, I mean, like you as an artist, right? You're inspired by so many things around you. It's like basically you're inspired by life in general.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I love that about your paintings. There's always hands in your paintings, and there's you focus on the face and the hands, and the kind of the idea, the psychology, and the idea of what they might be thinking is very sort of present in your work. I love that about your work.
Thank you so much. I'm right now thinking to make a series of work with the subject. I think in French it's you say it like fin de siècle. So it's like end of the century or something like that, end of the circle. It's that melancholical feeling when the world is just like going to ruins, and you have to survive this time, and you feel this anxiety and melancholy. It's something about the bohemian as well, or the I forgot the word, I forgot the word. Anyway, yeah, so this kind of feeling, because right now so many like bad things happening in the world, right? Like, and at the same time we're feeling okay, right? We're drinking coffee, we're posting on Instagram, we are going to movies. So it feels like on this background of chaos and things that are happening in the world, you have to survive. You still have to enjoy the life or something like that. And this feeling of coming catastrophe or something like that, but like what I mean. So
no, 100% I know what you mean. But it's funny because I read a lot of history, and when you're reading about, like, if you start that in England you can read old newspapers, and sometimes I read old newspapers from like 1845, and the same idea of this doom and gloom and tomorrow's going to be a disaster and a catastrophe they had back then. It was exactly the same thing. So it's this idea that humans just carry on, propagating through time over and over and over again in different ways. It's
decadence. That's the word. Decadence.
Decadence. Yeah. Yes. Decadence. And also I like the idea of bohemian in your like the bohemian in your art. A lot of your characters sort of look like these bohemian artistic characters, and
thank you.
The philosophy of bohemian was actually like a French philosophy that happened after the French Revolution, and it was kind of these this group of people that had moved into Paris, and they were artists and poets and writers, but they didn't have much money and it kind of gives me that bohemian feeling, some of the characters that you paint.
Yeah, and all this feeling like I know that more happened like towards the end of the century when you start kind of feeling that it's times are changing, and you start feeling this kind of anxiety. It's flying in the air, you know, that something will happen, but you don't know what, and you feel this, you know, like feel this anxiety in you, but you still kind of live your life. So I want to make a series of work, and right now I'm reading the history of Bohemian.
Okay.
So yeah, I will send you the cover of the book because I'm so bad with remembering names, but it's a woman. She wrote this book, so I will send you the cover. We can write it in the comments if someone is interested. But it's really interesting to know all these, like how people reacted to this kind of times. And you know, now it's not end of the century, but somehow we feel it, like because all these things happening around us and we see it through our phones and news, right? Like we're
Yeah.
so like surrounded by all this bad news and stuff that happening, but at the same time life's gone. So yeah, and that's what I feel, pretty open.
So,
So
so
yeah.
how do you approach a series? Like when you're thinking about painting a series, how do you approach it?
Mm-hmm.
How many paintings? How big are the paintings? Do you do preliminary sketches? Like, how does it work? How do you visualize it?
Mm-hmm. So I start with like a mood board on in my studio where I have like my table. So it's like a workspace where I do sketches, writing, some stuff. So I cover it with a lot of pictures that I find interesting or find related to this subject, and it helps me kind of be in that mood. Right, that's why it's a mood board. Then I try to read as many sources as possible, just to be more sure what I'm doing and I'm doing it right, like historically, you know, like based on some facts. And sometimes you read the story of something like a Bohemian, and then you find so many characters. It already gives you so much ideas for your future works. You know, like Andrew Rimbaud, like the poets, all these guys. You know, like it's
Mm.
fascinating how they lived and how they died. You know, like Oscar Wilde and all. So it's already is a huge source. Like literature is definitely a huge source for ideas. And then I just start finding some kind of like poses, or maybe color palettes, or maybe some um, I don't know, some ideas for some kind of scenario that will happen. For example, right now I'm painting a big work that will be probably my first work from this series. It's a guy. He's sitting. It's one of my friends from Paris. Actually, he's a model, and he sent me a photo where he's sitting, pretty melancholic and kind of like no emotions on the face. So he's kind of bored. And behind him, I want to make a cloud of. Like a cloud, but you don't see, is it a cloud of nuclear power bomb or something like that, you know, like, so it's something is going on in the background, something probably bad, but he's sitting very melancholic and very like, you know, no emotion. So that's how I feel right now, because so many things going on and you're just like drinking coffee, you know. So yeah, something like that. And then I sketch. I have always a sketchbook with me, so yeah.
And does a gallery tell you how many paintings you have to have for a show, or I mean, how many get how
Mm.
for a series? How many paintings do you look to paint for a series that you're working on?
You know, I just had honestly one solo show. So very sad to say, but this is true. I just had one solo show in my life, and just happened in Madrid. And for that, I made the subject for my series pretty large. I took the yellow, so I called the series 585 nanometers, which is a wavelength of kind of like yellow orangey color wave. So, and it was like a scene that you know, made my old paintings come together in one subject. So it was like about the yellow mostly, because it was a line that went through all my paintings. It was kind of like slightly cheating because I didn't have a specific subject for the characters, but I had the color subject. So I decided I will, you know, uh, trick it a little bit. So yeah, and it was my first solo show. I don't know if I will have, like, when I will have my next one. If you galleries are listening to me, please invite me for the solo show.
And how many paintings were exhibited in your solo show in Madrid?
Yeah, so it was like around 20, but there were like half of them were pretty small. So it were like probably 12 or 10. They were like large.
And
And
how
then
big was the biggest one?
150 on 150 centimeters. I don't know what is in inches.
I work in centimeters too.
Yes.
So yeah.
Oh
So, I
gosh.
mean, yeah.
You're on
150
the
by
light
150.
side. Thank you.
It could just about getting through the door.
It's like, yeah, it's kind of like me, slightly smaller. I'm
Yeah.
163, so yeah.
And do you work in do you only your canvases are only oil, or do you have acrylic in there as well?
Sometimes like I work with acrylics. It gives me more, I don't know if you work with acrylics, you feel like how you have like more possibilities and being slightly crazier, you know, like with all the brush strokes, because with
Well, I
oils
like the wetness. I like the wetness of
yeah.
acrylic. I like the drippiness of acrylic. I like to splash color down sometimes with acrylic. It depends what I'm doing, but especially if I'm working on big scale, to
And
splash
background or
areas.
something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I found it too. Like I found it really kind of you're like so going into the process when you take acrylics. First of all, it's slightly less expensive than oil, so you kind of you can grab more and be like crazy. And if you don't like, you just cover it. You know, while with oils, you slightly thinking about like if you are allowed to use so much color for just playing around. No, you're not, because it's expensive. So yeah, so with acrylics, I use it on backgrounds for sure. I love my backgrounds in luminescent pink now. I don't know if you try to paint on luminescent pink. It's amazing. I mean, like everything you
Luminous
paint.
pink. Luminous
Yeah,
pink.
just take the acrylic, like this luminescent pink, you know, the very bright.
Okay.
Cover it and try to paint a portrait on it. The tricky thing is that everything you paint on it, like any skin color, it will look green at the beginning. So you paint everything you like mix on the palette, you put that green, green again. And then at the end, I don't know this, it's like a magic. But as a self-taught artist, I don't know how it's happening. Probably a professional would explain me that. It's maybe visual effects or something like that. But when you add the background and some touches, like final touches, it starts living. I love this
Oh,
moment.
so you think that the pink comes through the paint and it kind of gives it a glow?
No, I think it's like comparison to pink color, this bright pink color. Everything you mix, even if it's a peachy, pinkish color you mix on the palette, you put it on the painting, it looks green. Just try
Green.
it. It's amazing. Like it kind of, it's a bit challenging,
Right.
but
Wow.
yeah, but the result is really cool. Like at the end.
Oh, that's really interesting. And Tania,
I'm giving you bad advices. I'm so sorry.
no, I'm not. I'm not dogmatic about anything. I
Okay,
don't think
cool,
there's one
cool.
way to do anything. There's so many different ways to create art.
Yeah, at least somewhere we don't have rules, right? Art should be that
Yeah,
sphere with
exactly.
no rules.
There's no rules. There's no rules. So it's about playing and experimenting and having fun and just working out what
Yeah.
you want. But one thing I will say is I cannot paint flesh tones with acrylic. I have to paint with oil.
No.
Yeah.
Actually, I tried one portrait
Did you?
and yeah, and it was like amazing the way, but you know, I use this kind of medium that kind of slightly helps to
Thicken it.
slow the drying process, because
Oh,
usually
right.
acrylic are drying too fast for me. So rather it's for the background when you want to be expressive and do it like right away. But with that medium, it kind of allows you to kind of play around, so it feels slightly like an oil. But I was surprised, but I could paint the portrait with like the whole portrait with acrylics and look like oils. I will send you. And Jerry's also liked it the most, actually, which was funny.
Oh, fantastic. Well, if Jerry likes it, it's good enough for me. So tell me, Tania, last question before we wrap up. If you could have any painting in the world, on your wall, what painting would it be?
Okay, so I know it's not famous. Can I say two? Can I say three?
Sure. There's no rules.
Okay. I like one. I love one Uruguayan. Is it like the artist from Uruguay?
Uruguay.
Uruguay.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. Carlos Federico Saez.
He's amazing. Yeah.
Right? I
Yeah.
love his portraits. And there are two portraits. One guy is sitting on the chair with a lot
Mhm.
of space around him. And another one is like in black with like some white shirt or something like the pose is like that with hair. And the background is probably made with palette knife. I'm not sure, but it has like shimmering colors. And I
I
love
know
this
the exact one.
portrait.
It's like a profile. It's like a
Yeah,
profile of a
like he's
person. Yeah.
slightly in three quarter,
And it
like
looks like the
slightly from.
wallpaper's kind of peeling off behind it. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love it. I love these
Yeah.
portraits. So definitely this artist, because I never saw any art works of this artist in life, because they're all in Uruguay. Uruguay, you say?
Are they all in Uruguay?
Yeah, probably. I mean, like I
Mm.
couldn't find even the book
Mm.
like that were in English or at least available somewhere next to me. So, what else? So I would definitely take someone from the Russian artists. Probably
Mm.
it would be Malyavin, Philip Malyavin, the peasant women. It's a
Mhm.
huge one, so probably I won't have a round for that. And can I take some modern artists, or it should be only from the previous?
Anyone you want, anything you want.
Oh, and maybe Kupka, the yellow scale, his
Oh yeah.
self-portrait. Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
that one. And, Ruprecht von Kaufmann, contemporary artist.
Yeah.
Have you heard about him, Ruprecht
Yeah, of
von
course.
Kaufmann?
Yeah.
I will be in quarantine in Minorca in Spain as a mentor. They invited me as a mentor, and I will be with other mentors, and Ruprecht von Kaufmann is going to be there. So
Oh,
I
really?
think,
Is
yeah,
that for another workshop?
it's not like a workshop. It's kind of like it's an island. So
Mm.
80 artists are going to this island in Minorca, and they're like not allowed to take their phones. So it's all like really like a quarantine, and you spend time there. It's like 5 or 6 days with 8 mentors, and you mostly, I think, talk and share, and it's different vibe. You don't need even like to paint there, like professional, something like that. It's about creativity and all this stuff. And I will be with Ruprecht von Kaufmann, my favorite artist. I was
So
shocked
will
when
he be mentoring you, or will you be mentoring other people?
he's one of the mentors.
Mhm.
As me, so there are like 7 mentors, and I'm also a mentor. So
Oh wow,
yeah,
that
and
sounds fascinating.
I
When will
know,
that
and
happen?
October next year, this year, October. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think when I will go there, I will just be like this, looking at him all the time because I love his art. So I would definitely like his work, and like somewhere in my home, like in bedroom, looking at it, because he paints all this dreamy nightmares, and he paints everything from his imagination, which is like incredible. If you'll see his like anatomy and everything, he knows what he's doing, but at the same time he can do it, because I'm very bad with imagination. I don't know how about you, like can you paint the whole body in emotion from
No, I have
imagination?
to be
Yeah,
looking at something. Yeah.
yeah, me too. I
Mm.
wish to have this kind of skill, to paint from imagination. Then I don't need any models. I would just paint my imaginary world,
Yeah,
how
I used to do that when I was younger, but then I went to
mm,
art school and I kind of it took me in a different direction. But yeah, when I was younger, I
right.
used to paint completely from my imagination.
Why we lose it? I feel that we lose it with the education or with the age. I'm not sure like what
It's funny
is
how things
affected
change.
us.
Like if you were looking back at if you yourself could look at you now from 10 years ago, probably be
Hmm.
so proud of everything you've done. But 10 years ago, you probably just wanted to paint a head,
Yeah,
But now
absolutely.
that's not enough, you have to do more. It's just
Mm,
over time it changes. I remember when I was just all I wanted to do was just paint a portrait. And if I could just paint a portrait, I'd be happy. And now it's like I could paint a portrait, but I want to paint it this way. I want to paint it this way. And it
yeah,
just
not good
constantly evolves.
enough.
Yeah, constantly
Well,
evolving,
yeah, we
challenging.
start being so self-critical, and before we could just, I mean, like if I would paint before, like I don't know, the torso, something that looked like a torso, at least a little bit, I would be proud of myself. Now I need all this anatomical perfectness, like it should be perfect, otherwise I'm kind of not allowed to have it. And this perfectionism, is it the word?
Yeah,
uh, per-
perfectionism.
Perfection is, this is like killing, it's a killing a good vibe actually,
Yeah, it is
so
killing a good
it's
vibe
horrible.
because sometimes when things look too perfect, they don't look, they kind of look a bit ugly almost,
I
It's like
know.
I like the imperfections. I like the
Hmm.
the cracks and the I don't know, the imperfections make it
Asymmetry,
interesting.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. Just a quick thing. Sorry, I'm again trying to be smart, but a quick thing that there's a fly trying to die in my coffee. Oh, poor thing. Please leave. Yeah. Anyway, I read that in ancient Greek and Roman, in their language, they never had a thing that we have now. We say the artist is a genius. And in their language, and before, it was like the artist has a genius. So it like
Mm.
takes all the pressure from you. Like you just can say, well, the genius was not with me today, and you can create crap and it's fine. But right now we have all this pressure. If the artist is talented, he or she kind of has to paint well all the time, although it's not possible. We're not machines. So just interesting
Yeah,
thought.
I think that's definitely a pressure on the modern artist as well. People look to
Hmm.
artists as these sort of freaky geniuses that,
Yeah.
have to produce this extraordinary stuff when, people are just people and it's a journey. Life is a journey. And, what you create on the way is fascinating, but it often only makes sense when you're looking back years later.
Yeah. Allowing yourself to do a mistake or crappy work is a good skill.
Yeah, for sure. You learn so much from your mistakes.
Absolutely.
Tanya, I've
And
learned so much
it's
today from.
alive.
Yeah, exactly. I've learned so much today from speaking to you.
Thank
You're a
you so
great
much.
inspiration. I love your work. I wish you all the
Thanks.
success in your career, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching, and thank you for inviting me.
I
Ciao,
really
ciao
enjoyed
everyone.
this. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.